Alright, hi everyone, my name's Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
Alright, so we've all made it through high school English class. Everyone's familiar with William Shakespeare. But are we really? I know personally I had to depend on No Fear Shakespeare in order to translate most of his work. In fact, the quotation that I'm going to analyze today is so complicated I had to write it down. "'Tis better to be lowly born and range with humble livers and content, than to be perked up in a glistering grief and wear a golden sorrow." William Shakespeare wrote this in 1613 for his play Henry VIII. The fact of the matter is that when you boil down what Shakespeare is saying, basically what he has said is, it's better to be happy and poor than to be miserable and rich. The fact of the matter is that money doesn't truly buy happiness, and I think that in this day and age, it's an adage that we can all relate to. We're all college students who are working to get a degree, ideally to get a job, but at the end of the day, should you follow your passion and what you believe, if it isn't necessarily the most fruitful monetarily? Or should you go for law school, go for med school? Even though it might not be right for you, you certainly will make a lot of money. I agree with William Shakespeare that it is better to go with your heart rather than follow the money. In fact, money does not buy happiness, and I have 3 adages that evidence this fact. The first is a cautionary tale from the United Kingdom. The second is a piece of literature that we are also all familiar with from high school. And then finally, I'm going to talk about a really tragic recent event in popular culture. So the first, cautionary tale from the United Kingdom. Michael Carroll was 19 years old when he won the United Kingdom's lottery. He won £10 million. That's about $15 million. Regardless, it's a lot of money for a 19-year-old to be thrown at. And Michael Carroll lived in abject poverty before he won the £10 million. He was a garbage collector. He didn't finish high school. He had no dreams of wealth, but it was thrust upon him. You would think that because he won the lottery, Michael Carroll's life was set. The fact of the matter is that winning the lottery essentially destroyed his life. His friends and family all found out how much money he had, and they constantly harassed him for it. They believed that he owed it to them because they had supported him in the past. Michael Carroll turned to drugs. He wasted all of his money on lavish expenses like buying new homes, buying new cars. In fact, he made a racetrack in his own backyard. It simply shows that having money doesn't necessarily equate to happiness. And less than 5 years after Michael Carroll won the £10 million, all of it was gone. He had blown it all on extreme parties, wasting it on fruitless investments. He was more miserable than he had ever been before he won the money. The fact is, that money didn't buy him happiness. Now he was living in a reality where, although he had a taste of that gold, it was a golden sorrow, as William Shakespeare would say. I think that this is a really good example for why money doesn't buy happiness, and that you really have to be careful what you wish for. My second example of why money doesn't buy happiness comes from American literature. F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. Almost all of us should be familiar with it. I think that it was essentially required for every junior year high school student in the United States to read. But I'll give you a recap for those of you who aren't familiar. Within The Great Gatsby, Jay Gatsby is a wealthy financier. However, he's new money. His ultimate goal was to become rich to woo the love of his life, Daisy Buchanan. Daisy Buchanan comes from old money and is married to Thomas Buchanan, who has inherited his wealth. At least in this scheme, that is what is valued more highly. Jay Gatsby, on the other hand, has earned all of his money through organized crime and bootlegging during the Prohibition era. Now, Jay Gatsby, although he came from nothing, a true American dream rags to riches story, because he wasn't from old money, he was still miserable because Daisy wouldn't love him. Daisy was enthralled by his beautiful mansion, his fancy cars, his lavish parties. But at the end of the day, Jay Gatsby was completely miserable. He couldn't win over the love of his life, no matter how much money he earned. The fact of the matter is that if he had stayed in North Dakota, where he was born, continued to be a farmer like his family, he probably would have wound up in a happier life than being miserable, chasing after the love of his life, and never be able to attain that. In fact, at the end of the book, spoiler alert, Gatsby dies alone. So I think that this really is an evidence of the fact that money can't buy happiness. no matter how hard Jay Gatsby strived, no matter how close he was to that American dream, it simply wasn't enough because he was conflating earning money with gaining the admiration of others and truly finding success within yourself. My final example for why money doesn't buy happiness comes from recent popular culture. Now, this summer, all of us heard the tragic news that comedian Robin Williams had committed suicide. And I think that what was even more tragic about this horrible death was people's reaction to it. I think that mental health debate within America, it's extremely lacking, and that's evidenced by a lot of the social media commentary about Robin Williams' suicide. People wrote things like, Robin Williams was so wealthy and successful. He had everything to live for. How could he do that? And I think that that really shows a dichotomy between what a reality is and what we, as Americans at least, believe is success and happiness, and that's monetary gain. However, mental illness and mental health, that's blind to social class. The woes of the rich are the same as the woes of the poor. And because of Robin Williams' success, that doesn't necessarily mean that he was blanketed from the same desperation and reality that almost everyone faces. I think that this is a really tragic and harrowing example, but it really does ring true, and it's something we can all relate to, is that although he was successful monetarily, he still had a lot of inner demons in him that money can't protect you from. So, in order to wrap everything up, I've covered 3 different tales of why money doesn't necessarily buy happiness. The first comes from the United Kingdom, with Michael Carroll and his wealth from the lottery. It shows that you have to be careful what you wish for. A giant lump of cash doesn't necessarily equate to happiness in your life. I think that the fact that Michael Carroll lost it all in the end and ended up even more miserable than he was before shows that it really was better for him to remain in the life that he had rather than to be thrown into a life he wasn't used to and end up even less happy than before. The second example from American literature with Jay Gatsby evidences the fact that although we have an idea that monetary success is the key to people's happiness, it simply isn't true. The miserable life that Gatsby led, despite of its lavish facade, it simply doesn't equate to money buying happiness. And the final is a tragic example from recent popular culture. I think that the suicide of Robin Williams really was a wake-up call to a lot of people that although people may be successful in the eye of popular culture, that you may have all the wealth you want in the world, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're happy, and it doesn't protect you from the woes of everyone else. So I think that William Shakespeare is right. He was a man before his time. He had a lot of wisdom, and it was true that money doesn't buy happiness. Thank you.
Thank you. Start in the rear here.
Hi, I'm Christy, and I think you did an
Hi,
excellent job.
Christy.
I liked how, even though this was an impromptu speech, and we don't exactly have to follow the same outline we did with the other speeches we gave prior, you still did, and made it very coherent and easy for us to understand, and your examples were very understandable for everyone.
No notes. What was the time, by the way?
8:15.
8:15. Yeah, a little long.
You did really
Improvement. Thank you, Christy.
I'm Randy.
Hi, Randy.
I think, honestly, I loved your speech. The only thing that I would say is maybe you could slow down at some points and pause more to let the audience kind of let it sink in a little bit, because your examples were so poignant that I was still thinking about some of the things you said about Gatsby when you moved on to Robin Williams and stuff.
Yeah, let the idea think. Were you giving her every minute down?
No.
No, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah,
I was a
so
little
I'm
bit
not,
confused
I'm not
because no
going
one
to
was giving me
give
any
her
hand
every minute
signals.
down because when
I was
you
trying to see the stopwatch. I was just like, I don't know how long it's been.
yeah, Sarah, when you see that you're coming up short, then you shorten down your final summation. This was a really good impromptu, folks. This is what I was looking for. No notes, you notice. She used her full time, and she was right on point. She stated the quote. My only trivial critique would be to you came back to the quote on a couple of times, but you didn't come back every time. And I would like you to have come back to a line in the quote of golden sorrow, or and and this and have the golden sorrow, and that sort of thing. But you managed to Monday Camp by Aberdeen, and you managed to condense it down into that, and that was really excellent. Great fluency. I'd like to see you move 3 times. And your coat doesn't fit, so your hands aren't. Your hands.
That's my raincoat.
I know
it's freezing today.
I know it is, but your hands were concealed a little bit. Minor point. You did a really good job. Just a little overtime, but you chose your examples really well. They were very erudite and really on point, every one of them. And I liked the example from the English example. I liked the racetrack in the backyard. So something about that was very amusing to me. So very nice job, and I think you got the idea of impromptu. Thank you. Okay, I guess we're going with volunteers. Otherwise, it's you know who. Okay, you know who. Okay, hi. You are Kit Feng, right? Liz Feng, not Zing Feng. All right, just a minute. Liz Feng. Liz thing. Okay. I need a moment, Liz. Oh, boy. Yeah, I'd like to hear a speech on number 3. Solitude is the beginning of all freedom by William Orville Douglas, our famous Supreme Court Justice. Your time has begun. Can you center yourself a little better, please? Yeah, thank you. And just 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, like that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My topic today is solitude is the beginning of all freedom. And I will illustrate this topic from 3 parts. Depends on how we define the things all freedom. My first point is solitude is a crucial ingredient of creativity, and creativity leads to the freedom of knowledge. So solitude is a important ingredient of the freedom of knowledge. And I'll give you an example of Darwin. He always used to walk in the woods alone and decline all his invitation to a dinner in order to get the evolution theories come out. And also, Albert Einstein has said that when he was young, he really afraid of being solitude. But when he gets older, he found out that solitude is really a sweet thing. So solitude definitely contribute to the creativity of this great people, and they then in turn contribute to our knowledge of the world. And my second point is that solitude is the beginning of the freedom of choice, which I'll give example of my own. In the first year of my college, I really go through a very hard time. I have lots of brilliant people surrounding me. Some of them want to get a startup in the Silicon Valley, and they are very good at computer science. So I was dragged in by them to the industry of the computer science and taking the course of CI31, which is a very hard course. At first, I thought I could handle it because I'm good at math at the high school. And when I literally not actually failed this class but get a very bad grade, I really suspect my ability to do things, and I really think I'm going to ruin my college life. So I declined all my friends' invitation of dragging me more into the computer science industry, and I spent all the summers alone in an apartment. Every day I just go to the course, and I seldom talk to people because I feel less confident to talk to them. And also, I spend lots of time like introspecting myself and to get to know myself, what I really like, what I really want to do, what I really want to be. I figuring out I really like reading books, and I really like philosophy. I really love doing math. All these things are just likeness, are just love of that specific subject, and nothing related to the purpose of the monetary or the ideal job in the future. So I figured out what is the true me when I was isolated from all of my friends, and without being disturbing by their voice and by their opinions, I really get the freedom of choice, and I can make the right choice. And this is why, because of that solitude in the summer, that gets me stand here today and make a speech to you. And that's my second point. And my third point is solitude actually leads to the freedom of people. We all know that Mandela is a South African president who has just passed away, and he's definitely a great person. And I believe everyone knows that he has been put into prison for 15 years in the island. And in that prison, he was lived in one-person room, which is only 4.9 square meters large. And he used to spend 23 hours in that prison alone. And he's not allowed to work outside. Only in the morning and in the afternoon for half an hour, he can get out of that prison and to take a walk. But he was also isolated from the newspaper, from his friends talking, from meeting his wife. When 21 years later, he was finally allowed to meet his wife. He says that that's the first time in 21 years he got a chance to kiss and hug his wife. So he was really get absolute solitude, which is mandatorily isolated from the whole society and from whole environment around him. However, he really gained something from that. Before he was put into prison, he was really a bad-tempered and easily irritated person. He bombed the government simply because the government was practicing the segregation of races in South Africa, and the government was killing people, so he bombed them, and that's why he was put to prison, because the government declared that he was guilty because of this act. And after he spent so many times in prison alone, he take off all the edges of his personalities. He becomes a quite restrained person. He can tolerate any kind of challenges or challenges from the outside society or from the people. He even developed tolerant for all the challenge he has faces, and he developed cooperation with his before enemies. In his inaugural address of his presidency, he invited the 3 prison guards of his previous prison life and thanks them because they helped him in his most solitude to become a really restrained leaders that can lead the South African people finally to the freedom. So we can even to conclude that if Mandela has never been put into prison, he may just have been extreme activities of the democracy, but not really truly gaining the democracy for the South Africans through a peaceful solution. So I've given you 3 reasons of why I think solitude truly leads to the all of the freedom of human, because it leads to the freedom of knowledge, it leads to the freedom of choice, and also it leads to the freedom of political sense. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, we're somewhere back here. Here.
Hi, I'm Tasha.
Hi, Tasha.
I think you did a great job. It looked like you were scared of the quote, but it didn't tell when you were giving the speech at all.
Scared of the quote. Yeah, she had an initial kind of, oh, I hate that quote, didn't she? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Shane.
Hi, Shane.
I guess one thing which I guess I've noticed in the last speech too is instead of making eye contact, sometimes you look up, and I think that's what just you thinking. So that's just a habit that you could break.
That's good feedback. Well, Liz, you used all your time and then some. 7:25. You were flustered in the beginning of your speech, so you didn't really have a smooth send-off. You started off just with the quote, and not a story, a poem, or a joke, or anything, or something smooth to get us going into solitude. Solitude is the beginning of all freedom. Boom. So let's remember that we want to have the niceties of a smooth beginning that grabs our audience, draws them in, makes them want to listen. Something surprising. A thesis preview that tells us where you're going, the 3 points you're going to make, and the significance of why this group of students should promote and find time to take more time to have solitude in their lives. Let's talk about your major arguments, though. Your first argument was Darwin, which was a good one. Freedom of knowledge. Here I thought it was a good call, but a little light in terms of the development of the argument of how well he got freedom through his solitude. I happened to have gone to his house and was given the chance to lie down in his bed and take his walk, because I used to be a member of the Center for the Study of the Origin and Evolution of Life, so I went there with J. William Shaw. He used to take this long walk around his house, and it was in that walking, in that solitude, that he worked out the problems that he had in developing his theory of evolution and natural selection. And so some of that theory needed to be worked out, and how solitude was instrumental in developing the freedom of knowledge. Okay? On your second argument of freedom of choice, I think your personal story was excellent. I liked the fact that you honestly told us how you failed and you went into a cocoon and decided to strip away the dead branches and get rid of all the friends and all the social BS, and to find out who you really are, and to find out what you really were made of and what you really liked. And so that was a good story and good support of solitude helping you come back to freedom. On your third story, well, that was a pretty good story of Nelson Mandela. And you've managed to flesh it out in the end, and it was a very good story of how before and after he was, not to silver plate it much, but he was kind of a thug in his younger days, and he really did mellow in prison and was very kind to his guards and so on and so forth. Everyone knows that story and so forth. So you made that argument well. Looking at the end, summary, conclusion, and then we didn't get much to tie back because we didn't have much of an intro in the beginning except just the quote. Like to see you move 3 times. And other than that, you did a nice job. Thank you. Okay. Any more volunteers? Great. We love volunteers. He's taking his raincoat off. Very wise.
Hey, want me to find it in here?
Where are you? Bill Drummond?
No. I think I'm on the last page.
The last page. What's your name? Justin Hall?
Shane Houston.
Shane Houston. Oh, and this is your self-evaluation?
Is
One line, huh? Okay. All right, hang on a minute. Let me put it away.
right.
Let's see what we got going here. Is it Huston or Houston?
It's Houston, left to Owen, Texas.
Oh, I see. Like the Owen, Texas. Okay, I guess I'm on a rainy day. I guess I'll be interested in hearing number 2. There are worse things in life than death. Have you ever spent an evening with an insurance salesman? By our, what shall I say, director Woody Allen. I was going to say something else, but I'll just say Woody Allen. Yes, Woody Allen. Okay. Series acting up. Your time has started.
All right. So, who has ever gotten a splinter and been like, this is the worst thing in the world? I know I have. All right, now think about it. What could be worse than a splinter? How about death? Is there anything worse in the world than death? Now, that's a personal opinion. Whether there are worse things in life than death. Again, I'll repeat, is there anything worse in life than death? Of course, this has a personal opinion. This could be based on religious, political beliefs, or just personal beliefs. But I'm going to give you 3 examples of things that are worse than death. And that includes solitude, torture, and whatever personal belief that you may have. So, my first point is that solitude would be worse than death. Imagine you are the last person on earth, roaming the world, no one to talk to, stuck alone with your own thoughts. This is how Robert Allen felt when he was wrongfully accused of murdering a police officer and was placed in jail for 12 years. Upon his release, he died only 2 years later. He lived in solitude, and it may have been easier for him to be given the death punishment. I'm not saying that that was the better option, that is just something he might have felt. My second reason, or example of why death is not, of what is worse than death, would be torture. There are hundreds of U.S. soldiers abroad who have been returned after years of being prisoners of war. After years of torture, day after day, hour after hour, they've returned home. They still have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and are unable to continue their lives that they lived previously. This can continue to other people, such as children who are bullied at school, who think lower of themselves because of what other people say. And this could be further to people at home, children and spouses who are abused. And the third would be a personal belief. Now, this would be different for anyone in the room. There's that one thing that scares you, the one thing that you never want to face. I can give you one example, and that would be a mental illness, such as depression. According to suicide.org, over 90% of people who die by suicide have a mental illness at the time of their death. The most common is depression. And untreated depression is the #1 cause for suicide. So, I've given you 3 reasons why there are worse things in life than death. Solitude, torture, and whatever personal beliefs that you may hold. Now, before you run and cry that this splinter that you got was the worst thing in the world, reconsider. Have you ever spent an evening with an insurance salesman? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're somewhere here. Yes, please.
I thought that you
Start with your name,
Hi,
please.
Raymond.
Hi, Raymond.
I thought that you commanded the area well, and that your voice was powerful. You didn't seem to be afraid of the topic, and you knew what you were going to say and present it.
Okay. Improvement.
Hi, I'm Nina.
Hi, Nina.
I thought your speech was really good. The only thing I could think of is like you kept looking down a little bit, but other than that.
Okay. Let's talk about this quote in your speech, Shane. The quote was, "There are worse things in life than death. Have you ever spent an evening with an insurance salesman?" Sort of a set-up punchline, right? And you sort of chose to take the speech literally and seriously and then give the punchline at the end, which is the way you chose to literally do your impromptu speech. Let me give you a couple of suggestions. Try not to use notes when you do this, and just, if you can, and just work on your memory and work on so you can make better eye contact. That's my first thing. Your intro was fine. Your preview was fine. Your thing about solitude, interesting after the last speech we had on the greatness of solitude. You gave the opposite opinion where somebody was wrongfully accused. I think you only used 3/14 of a 7-minute speech or a 5-minute speech, depending on your point of view. So I think that could have been fleshed out, or you could have had more examples of where solitude can be really bad or harmful. On your second reason on torture, that was a good example. Again, more fleshed out would have been good, and the same with the beliefs. Your summary or conclusion were fine, and your tie-back were fine. My only objection to the speech, you did it, fine. It was just a little short, So try to build in more storytelling if you can. If you can present, there could have been. Did you? We have a lot to do, so I don't want to belabor this too much. But when you first saw this, had you thought of interpreting it in a different way or doing something different with this quote, or what was your thought about this quote?
I could have also gone in the direction of like salespeople and tax also,
right? And
using that as the comparison, but I used like the first half of the quote instead. So there was 2 ways.
Right. Yeah. And you chose not to do big, long, 7-minute ad hominem on how bad salespersons are and how everyone's trying to sell everything in the society now, and everyone's selling and all that stuff. Yeah. Okay, that could have been an equally way to go on this to, spread the quote out. Okay, you did a nice job. Thank you, Shane. It's a free country. Whose can I go?
Me, Randy.
Randy. Okay, good old Randy. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, give me a moment here,
Take your
please.
time.
What is this out of?
200. Good old Randy. What's your last name? Randy Brown.
Right,
You're right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's my self-evaluation.
This is your self-evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You did the short form.
I did because that's what you told us to do.
At my suggestion. Yeah. Okay, let's look at Randy Brown. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Randy, after that last speech, I'm in the mood for topic number 1, which says, not by age, but by capacity is wisdom acquired. And this is a quote by Titus Marcus Platus. So we're going to hear a speech about how wisdom is acquired, and your time has started.
Have any of you in this room ever looked back on a time when your parents gave you some advice, or when a teacher told you how to do something, and realized they were right? 5, 10 years later, you figure out your parents or your teacher or your advisor was right about something, but you didn't understand it then. You just didn't get it. The quote I'm addressing today is, not by age, but by capacity is wisdom acquired. I disagree with this quote. What I feel is that age is a high predictor of capacity, and that is why age is a good predictor of a level of wisdom. Now, I think that a lot of people in this room would probably disagree with me. They would feel that they're just as wise now as they'll ever be. But what I've learned growing up is that over and over I figured out my parents were right. Over and over I figured out that my elders, who I was always told to respect, I was respecting them for a reason. Now I'm going to demonstrate my disagreement with this quote with 3 examples. The first is from a show called Gilmore Girls, about a girl named Rory Gilmore who started out dating a nice guy and ended up dating a bad boy for a time, and how she didn't really realize why dating a bad boy was a problem. The second is going to be a personal example from my own life about my niece Sarah and her disability. And the last example I'm going to give is something that we'll all relate to, which is the difference in education levels from elementary school through college. Now, for the first example, Rory Gilmore. Now, Rory, if you haven't seen the show, she's a very smart girl. So she starts out dating a really nice guy. But then this bad guy comes to town. His name is Jess, and he is the coolest guy she's ever known. But he's also smart, and he's interesting. And she decides to go for it. She ends up dating him, and her mom over and over cautions her about this guy, telling her he wasn't right, telling her that she couldn't trust him, and she didn't believe her mom. In the end, though, on her graduation day, Jess left. Jess went straight across the country and moved on. And he called her, but he couldn't even say the word goodbye. She should never have trusted him. But she didn't really understand that until years later when she re-encounters him after he's grown up and she's grown up. They've both moved on, and with age and with time and experience, she's learned a great deal about relationships and about trust. And then she understands why things didn't work out with Jess and why she needed to move on. Because of that, age gave her the capacity to have wisdom about relationships. It's clear that age gave her that experience. And that's the only reason she knew how to deal with that. Now, the second example is about my niece, Sarah. Now, my niece, Sarah, has a very difficult time walking because of a birth defect. No one really can diagnose it or understand why, but she's had this problem since she was born. Now, when she was 2 and 3, she struggled to walk or run in a straight line. And it was really difficult for her. But she didn't understand it. Now, this Thanksgiving, she turns 8 in a month, so she's 7 now. And she told me how it makes her sad. But she understands now that she can't walk as well as other kids. She understands that she's never going to be able to walk as well as other kids. But she also understands that she's lucky, that she's pretty, and that she's smart. So even if she can't walk straight, she's got a lot going for her. She didn't get that at age 3 because she wasn't old enough to understand it. But age gave her that capacity and that wisdom. And I'm sure as she grows up, I'll see more and more of that with regards to this disability and so many other things. Now, my last example is about the difference between elementary school and college. Now, I don't know how many of you have taken a math class in college. I took one. It was a nightmare. But in kindergarten or in elementary school, when we were doing math, we were doing simple addition. 1 + 1 = 2. Now, that's still important, but what's more important is finding the integral of something or other. I don't do math, but it's much higher level. You couldn't teach that to a kindergartner, of course, and you'll all probably laugh at that thought, but you just couldn't because they didn't have the capacity. And that's because they just weren't old enough. As a result, I've shown you 3 ways in which age provides the capacity to bring us wisdom. And that capacity is linked to age. While wisdom is not constrained by age, age is a good predictor of capacity and thus wisdom. So, to bring it all back, think about a time when your parents were right. And then, in the future, if you have kids and they don't seem to be getting the advice you're giving them, think about it. Remember, they just might not be old enough to get it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're somewhere here. What's your name? Shireen?
Yeah.
Hi, Shireen.
Hi. I like your speech. It's very well organized and it gives really examples to support your position. Just the age gives your time to grow your wisdom, and I think it did a good job. Thank you.
Okay. Part of the climb.
Hi, I'm Caitlin.
Hi, Caitlin.
You had a great speech. Maybe put the note card in your back pocket when you're not using it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'll do that. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I hope you will. Yeah.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, good. Randy Brown. Well, okay. Randy Brown got not by age, but by capacity as wisdom acquired. You chose to be a contrarian and deny that capacity has anything to do with it, but it's merely age, right?
Well, the age is linked to capacity.
Linked to developing capacity, yeah. So that was a clever way to get around it. I liked your speech overall. I thought your examples were good and telling, some better than others. I liked your beginning, your intro, where you said, we've all had examples where parents or teachers told us that, and we go, oh, go to hell. And then you later found out they were right. And I wish I remembered how the cliche goes, but there's a cliche goes, I used to think my father was a stupid SOB, and then a couple years later I found out the SOB, really you learned a lot in a short amount of time or something. But we've all had that experience where, you grow up and you see that people know a little bit, people aren't as stupid as you hope they would be, I guess is the way to put it. Yeah. And you tied back to that, so you had those bookends. Just to get a little ahead of the story, since you only used 502, I would have liked a longer summary. Going back to the Gilmore girls, tell us more about Sarah again and remind us more of capacity in elementary school and colleges would have filled out your time more nicely. I like that you took a strong position, and it's okay to disagree with these quotes. That's why we're here, to be critical thinkers and think about what we're hearing and saying, and that was absolutely fine. The one thing that we didn't get at, and we just assumed we all knew, is what is wisdom, and that's a whole nother ball of wax, which we didn't get into, but might have been interesting to just have a throwaway definition or to say what you meant by it, but I think we all have a kind of a working definition of it. On your Gilmore Girls example, I think you provided an example where she chose a fancy dancer, a loser, and we've all had that kind of experience where we're blinded by the light, by the glitter, and we're fool's gold and all those metaphors, and it turns out to be really a bad situation. Your best story, though, I think was your second story of Sarah and her discovering with age that she had beautiful qualities, and that came with age, and that was your most convincing of your thesis to me. On your elementary college thing and using your own personal example, that was fine. Again, we didn't get much of a summary. The conclusion and tieback were okay. Put the notes away. You didn't really need them. I wrote here, so they were just an unnecessary appendage there. But overall, you did a nice job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do we have more volunteers?
I just finished Impromptu.
Okay, who's the next volunteer? No volunteers? Oh, they're all holding back. Okay, that's cool. Okay, we'll go back to the old system. Okay, I'd like to hear from Zhu Xingxiang. Hi, how you doing?
Hi.
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 Battery's gonna hold up, it looks like. What? Yeah. Okay. Are you comfortable, situated, in camera view? Yes? Okay, let me take a look at what we have. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I guess I will hear about topic 1, which says, happiness hates the timid, so does science, by Eugene O'Neill. And I'll need just a moment to fill out your name on the form. So bond with the audience for a moment, or look over your notes, or whatever you want to do. I can't really read your writing. Is it Xueying?
Yeah.
Okay, so I can read your writing. Xiony?
Xiong.
Xion, that's a G, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, good, good. Okay. Okay. In a second. Rock and roll.
Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Xueying.
Hi, Zooing.
Hi. I believe everyone has such kind of experience. You had a crush on someone who seems very special and attractive to you. You just feel intrinsically happy when you see this person, when you come across this person, talk to this person, or see this person in a faraway distance. But you just don't have the nerve to tell how much you like him or her.
Yeah.
Finally, you lost the chance to tell this person your feeling. And then you end up nothing but the feeling of regret and sadness. Happiness hates the timid, said by Ucla O'Neill. And the other part of this quote is, so does science. It is true that shyness may cost you a beautiful relationship, may also cost a $1 million idea or a monumental scientific invention or discovery. I totally agree with Ucla O'Neill's words. Happiness tends to favor the courageous one, and this can apply to almost every aspect in our life. It works for human relationships, science, and business domain. Today I'm going to show you being courageous may not guarantee success, but being timid will definitely lead to nothing but sadness. And second, I'm going to show you how being courageous and take actions can make the impossible possible and make a happier world. And third, I'm going to show you what we can do to overcome the timidity in our daily life step by step. So first, courage may lead people to failure or success, but timidity leads people to nothing. According to quotes from Theodore Roosevelt's famous speech, Man in the Arena, he said, "The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena. If he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who never know victory or defeat." This quote can also be applied to human relationship. You may get rejection by being brave and telling the one how much you love him or her, but at least you know the answer. You can keep pursuing that person or just to give up and move on to someone else. But if you keep silence and don't tell anything, you're gonna either suffering the pain of curiosity forever, or the sadness of missing the chance to say anything to that person. Courage cannot guarantee success, but the timidity will for sure make you achieve nothing but unhappiness. My second point is courageous ideas and actions make the impossible possible and make a happier and interesting world. Imagine people like Wright brothers were too timid to think about flying like birds in the sky. There might not be the invention of airplane in human history. And also imagine Alexander Bell were too timid to persist doing scientific tries. There might not be the emergence of telephone, not to say today's people cannot live without iPhone. If people like Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg were too shy to have the idea of changing people's way of work, study, entertainment, and communication, there may not be the existence of today's digital world of Facebook social media networks. If human beings are always defeated by timidity, today's world would be less interesting, less convenient, and less happy than what we are now. Courageous ideas and actions make the impossible things possible. And my third point is most people may think courage is an inherent personal trait, and some people are born to be brave and some people are born to be shy. That is not true. Even inherent shyness can be overcome and courage can be obtained by nurturing just as a skill. According to an article, Courageous Skill published in Harvard Business Review on January 2007 and retrieved on hbr.org. It writes that interviews of more than 2 senior and mid-level managers who have acted courageously, whether on behalf of society, their companies, their colleagues, or their own careers, show that courage is really impulsive, nor does it emerge from nowhere. Courageous action is more like a kind of calculated risk-taking in the business domain, which can be acquired by careful deliberation, preparation, and improved by practice, learning the lesson from the failure and avoid those mistakes in the next try. This courage calculation can be applied to other fields of our life to help us overcome shyness and make courageous decisions. Next time, if you have some hard decision to make or come across someone you really like, please don't hesitate to use courage calculation to help you make the decision and take the brave actions. Hope you can be less shy when you come across the person you like next time, and be brave to tell how much you like him or her. Thank you.
Thank you. 624. Where are we? Over here.
Hello, my name is Jack.
Hi, Jack.
You did a good job. I liked your tie back. It was solid. And you followed the structure that we did for the other speeches pretty well. So it was easy to follow along.
Yeah. Jack, I'm out of forms for my evaluation. Could you run over to the office and ask Rima to make 35?
My code is 9898.
Okay. Liz, improvement?
I think you should really get rid of the card. It's really distracting. And I think at first you give the crushing example. Imagine if you can get rid of the card, it's really like a good starting.
Yeah, okay. You, did you like this quote? Were you happy with this? Happiness hates the timid, so does science. Were you pleased, or were you hoping to get one of the other two, or what was your thought?
I agree with this quote. And
You agree with
I
that?
think
Yeah.
it's not only applying to the science domain, it applies to every aspect.
Every respect. Okay, that's not what I was asking you, but okay. Let me talk about what you did. Okay. When I looked at the quote, I thought that happiness hates the timid, so does science. So I thought you were trying to, divide your time between what makes happiness and what makes science successful. And I thought you gave a little bit too much time to the happiness side of it, and I wish you would have given us more examples besides the Wright brothers and Alexander Graham Bell to science, because there's many other examples where science hates the timid, Steve Jobs, etc., etc., and I really thought that was the thrust of the quote. But anyway, you started off with a personal story of basically kind of unrequited love. You have a crush on somebody and you don't get to tell them because you're too timid to say so, right? So that was and you tied back to that. You had a preview, and I thought your preview was okay, but just a little bit wordy. It could have been more succinct. Want to work on your pronunciation and diction, so you pronounce things more clearly. On your first reason, I loved your quote about the arena and the failure goes to the man that's actually in the arena. I wish you had read it more dramatically and emphasized certain key words, because it's a great quote. You read it kind of, all the words were the same, and make the quote come alive would have been good. On your second reason, I thought this was your best argument about the Wright brothers and Alexander Graham Bell. And I think that you made good arguments there. And on your third reason, I think you made your arguments okay there. You had about 30 seconds left, so you could have had a little bit more of a summary, and you did a good tie back to your beginning. You did move 3 times, because you'll see I lost you a little bit in the camera, because I wasn't paying too good attention. And as Liz suggested, you'll be more effective if you rely more on your memory and can you make better eye contact. But overall, you got the job done, and you did an impromptu speech. You did a nice job. Thank you. Do we have some more volunteers? Yeah, but it's going to be a minute, so you'll have to bond until I get my
This is
form.
my second speech.
What?
This is my second one.
What? Oh, you're the person I sent an email to.
Yeah.
Oh, there. Okay, oh, good.
Is that okay?
I guess so. What happened to you? Did you die or something?
Like, I left early for Thanksgiving, and the week before I had something. Yeah.
It happens.
Wait a minute. Yeah, and I didn't get your midterm either.
I'll get that into you.
Yeah. Well, you're really blowing it. Bernard.
Hi.
Okay, all right, well, let's rock and roll, Bernard.
All right. Hi, I'm Bertrand.
Hi, Bertrand. Hi, Bertrand.
When I say medical marijuana, what do you think about? Probably
Potheads.
Exactly. You might think just an excuse for the sleazy potheads to get their hands on cheap marijuana and smoke it legally in public, right?
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't be wrong. I mean, a lot of people have MedCard for that reason. But there's a reason why medicinal marijuana is medicinal marijuana. It also has, it's proven time and time again, to provide plenty of medical uses, and in some cases have even changed lives. So, that being said, if a cop were to pull you over and take your inhaler, would that be just? How about your pain medication or your antibiotics? With the recently passed Senate Bill 1262, this will be allowed. Authorities will be allowed to seize your medicine with no questions asked. So what is Senate Bill 1262? It tightens restrictions on medicinal marijuana. It allows authorities to crack down on distribution, medical distribution centers, and marijuana cultivators, and allows authorities to directly look at your medical documents and medical history, which is actually a clear violation of the Fourth Amendment and your right to privacy.
Mm-hmm.
So, the question is, can Senate Bill 1262 bring order to California's Wild West of weed? My answer, a resounding no. Senate Bill 1262 cannot bring order to California's Wild West of weed for 3 reasons. 1, because the bill targets the wrong crowd. 2, because the main point of the bill is not actually to target the Wild West of weed, but to provide government funding. And 3, because simply people will find another way to get their hands on cannabis. So, reason number 1. The bill targets people, medical patients who need medical marijuana, rather than the sleazy potheads on the street who do it for recreational purposes. So, instead of targeting medical marijuana, they should instead be looking towards drug trafficking on the streets. It also targets high levels of marijuana with high levels of THC under the premise that it is deadly. And this statement is false. In fact, THC is the component of cannabis that has proven time and time again to actually help the patients the most, including children with epilepsy. In one recorded case, a 2-year-old had up to 300 seizures in a single week. But with THC and medical marijuana, that 300 was lowered to a simple 1. They also say THC is dangerous. However, science proves otherwise. In fact, the most dangerous part of THC is the actual extraction out of the cannabis plant, and no one has ever died from THC. Furthermore, may already know, but dabs are the name of highly concentrated THC oils ready for smoking. And of course, this is very popular among recreational smokers. And this has shown in the fact that in the past year, dabs have made up for 40% of cannabis sales. And while it's right for the bill to focus on getting rid of these dabs, will that really do anything for California's Wild West of weed? Weed has been legal in dispensaries since 1996, and to set this bill to target a recent trend that just took place 1 year ago, will you really be reversing history? My second point of why Senate Bill 1262 will not bring order to California's Wild West of weed is because it mainly brings in cash for the government instead of actually doing what its proposed job is to do. Let's start with talking about the science behind cannabis. Cannabis contains hundreds and thousands of chemicals called cannabinoids, and of these are two major ones, THC and CBD. THC is what gets you high. It's what the potheads seek out and recreational smokers need. But it also contains CBD, and what CBD is the more medicinal part of it. Take the example of Sally. Sally is a 40-year-old mother who, with 2 kids, who was recently diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And this is actually a very terrible disease because it attacks your body from the inside. Basically, your immune system thinks that it's its own enemy and turns on itself. And it's extremely painful, causes horrible, horrible things to the body, including in Sally, it caused her teeth to go soft and even the roof of her mouth to turn black. Anyway, so we have the science to create marijuana strands with more CBD than THC. So you'd think that governments would want this, right? Because it doesn't get you high, but it does have medical purposes. However, this is not the case. In fact, the government are cracking down specifically on dispensaries selling high CBD infused marijuana. And why? Because the government wants to create a monopoly of CBD and sell it itself. This creates money, and it's a win-win for the government. Reason number 3, even if the bill were to be passed, it will not stop people from smoking. That's a simple fact. And we saw in 1920 in the alcohol prohibition, after we banned alcohol, people still drank alcohol. And especially taking a med card away from someone who went through the trouble of getting it isn't really going to stop them. So in conclusion, SB 12, Senate Bill 1262 will not bring order to California's Wild West of weed, and in fact, it will only slow down. It will only act as a challenge for the actual patients who need this medical marijuana, like Sally and kids with epilepsy. So remember, when I say marijuana, you might think it's just an excuse for people to, smoke weed, but really, there are people out there like Sally and others who really need this weed, this marijuana, to get by in their life, and it should not be taken away from them.
Thank you. 841.
Hi, I'm Laura.
Hi, Laura.
I think that your topic is really well researched, and it was good that you used the example of Sally and used a lot of background research.
Improvement.
Hi, I'm Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca.
I think your speech was really well researched and it was good. The only thing I could think of is
not read, but I could tell that you were trying to like make eye contact, so that was good too.
Bertrand, not Bernard. Okay, Bertrand. I liked your introduction and your tie back to it. That's the sort of the on the street. They're just trying to evade the law and get around by getting a card. So that was good. Needed a shorter introduction, a thesis, and my position is no, it's a crummy law, and I'm going to give you 3 reasons why, and they are 1, 2, 3, a brief overview. This is really significant to all of you because the government's trying to get into our houses now, and they're trying to get into our lives. Then give your reasons. You're much too long and ponderous in your 3 reasons, so work on your timing to condense it and shorten it down. You need to summarize what you said. So I've given you 3 reasons why. In conclusion, there should be no doubt in this room, this is a lousy bill. Don't vote for 1262. And to tie back to the beginning, so don't think that people that are getting medical marijuana are just a dodge. One thing I want to say about your personal examples, they are memorable and they do help the story come alive, and they're good storytelling, but they don't take the place for good empirical studies that suggest that it works for Crohn's disease in a lot of cases, and not just anecdotal evidence of 1 or 2 cases. But you got the job done. Thank you. Okay, do we have more volunteers? Okay, great. Hang on a minute. What's your name?
Angie.
Angie Dickinson? What's your last name?
Wayne.
Angie Wang. Where are you on my list? There you are. I found you. Okay, Angie Wang. Okay, I'd like to hear a speech on question number 2, which says, the beauty of empowering others is that your own power is not diminished in the process. By Barbara Color Rose.
Is it okay if we take the 2 minutes to work?
You may take your 2 minutes to do whatever you like with it. Yes, start your time and give it a countdown. Your time has started. Okay, you have about 6 minutes left.
camera good to go?
Remind me to make an announcement after the speaker.
Is the camera good to go? No, it's standing here.
Yeah,
You may go. Your timing is
Oh,
good.
just move a little bit.
It's rolling. It's just going on a blank screen.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Angie.
Hi, Angie.
And every day we're given a chance to empower someone else. And in the midst of finals, and in the midst of classes, and work, and internships, and families, and friends, we don't always take advantage of that. Because it's hard. Because we're always thinking, what do I have to do today to just get me through to tomorrow? But the beauty of empowering others is that our own power is not diminished in the process. And I fully agree with this statement by Barbara Colorado. So today I'm going to tell you 3 kinds of things we can give to other people without taking from ourselves. I guess in order to do this, I have to loosely define empowering. Empowering, in this case, is just sharing something you have with someone else to help them out. And so today, my 3 examples are kindness, knowledge, and credibility. So to speak to my first example, kindness, compliments don't cost anything. Compliments aren't money. So just by making your day doesn't mean my day's any less. In fact, I find that when I compliment someone else and I help them recognize that this rainy day isn't as gray as they think it is, it makes me feel a little better. And so not only does it not cost you anything, it could in turn help you. And so when we talk about empowering others, we don't have to be giving some grand speech on how to be a better person than you think you can be or achieve your fullest potential. It could just be something as small as, handing out a kind word. My second example is knowledge. Knowledge is something that you can give out, like kindness, without costing yourself anything. And lots of people do that every day. Every professor does that every day. And so when we talk about knowledge, it's not just in the standard classroom setting where you stand there and you lecture someone about biochemistry or engineering or math. It's just helping them understand something that they otherwise didn't. For example, when I study for midterms, I love to study with friends because there's no way I can sit in a room and say, okay, you need to get through all this material and you need to do it now. And so I form study groups. And for me, the easiest way to study something is to actually help someone else learn it. So if I'm sitting at a desk and I'm saying to myself, okay, Angie, E equals MC squared, F equals MA, that doesn't really help me. But if someone else needs me to explain it to them, then I can explain, in words that I understand, I have understood for years. And so by sharing that knowledge, I am allowing myself to break it down for a friend, but also for myself. And so then, by sharing that knowledge, I'm also, again, like a benefactor in that situation. So knowledge is the second thing that you can share with others without having it detract from yourself. The third thing, and this one took me a while to come up with because I kind of grappled with it a little, is credibility. And so a lot of the times, we're afraid to admit we're wrong, or we're afraid to say, that opinion that I stood really strongly on 30 seconds ago, yeah, I changed my mind. And that's okay, because if you think about it, acknowledging someone else's counterpoint, as often done in debate, in policy, in anything like that, helps you. Because what you're saying is, I hear you, and I understand you, but I still disagree, and this is why. So that's always a strength to your case, because you're acknowledging that this is not my stance, but, I hear you, and I see that. And by telling people that you have been, equally aware of your argument, of the counter-argument, and that you still believe in your case, I see that as a strength. Because what happens there is that you're even more credible because you're more knowledgeable. Now, the second half to that is admitting you're wrong. And sometimes you are, and you can't help it, because we learn from our mistakes. So credibility can be gained by admitting you're wrong. And sometimes admitting you're wrong means empowering someone else and saying, you know what, you were right, I was wrong, my bad. And now that makes you a better person, and that makes them seem like a credible source. So again, nothing lost. So in summary, kindness, knowledge, and credibility are 3 things you can gain without losing. And so the beauty of empowering others, I agree, is that nothing's taken from you. You don't lose. And so when you're walking around campus on a rainy day like this, think about how you can use these 3 things and impart on someone else just anything. Literally anything. And don't think about it as like money or as something that like takes out of you because you've given to someone else. That's the beauty of it, is that you can share with someone something you already have and lose nothing. That's really rare, and I think it's something that we should take upon ourselves more often. Thank you.
Thank you. 7:43, where are we here?
I'm Justin.
Hi, Justin.
I saw a big improvement from last time when you were just reading. You had a lot more passion. You still followed the script or the breakdown perfectly. And yeah, just a more powerful voice makes me more interested in it.
Where are we here?
Hello, I'm Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
That was a really fantastic speech. The only thing was, I think that you didn't need the note card. Like, next time, maybe just don't even use it.
Yeah. Also, just start on that note, I think that you didn't really need the 2 minutes of prep time. I think you could have taken 1 minute and had more time and not gone over time. You took the quote and ran with it, and you said you agreed with it, and that was fine. It would have been interesting to know who this quote person was, and so tell us a little bit about her if you wanted to. Your preview was good. Your credibility point was a little bit of a stretch, but you explained it. Your kindness and your examples were good. Your knowledge was, I appreciated it, and I thought that was good and well done. The credibility thing was, I use this very similar thing in my 102 course to talk about argumentation is actually an act of loving when you have a disagreement, agreement, and a synthesis out of it. There's a kind of a building of respect between the two parties, and there's a mutual respect and credibility that comes out of it. So I thought that was good. You tend to still not stand still, pace up and back. You're using the word like too much as a transitional device. And other than that, you've improved dramatically. So I like that. Just trust yourself. You don't need the card. Trust your mind that you can remember what you're going to say. If you need to have the card in the pocket, have it in there and pull it out, and then you have your crutch there. But it hurts your credibility a little. You did a nice job. Thank you. Okay, anybody that wants to, I have an announcement. If anybody wants to earn extra credit, we need some judges this weekend at Mount San Antonio College in Walnut. Email me if you're interested, or see me after class. It's Saturday. It just involves calling a winner in a debate, much like you've seen people give speeches here and saying, it's not rocket science, but we're short a couple judges, so if any of you are interested, email me as soon as possible. And if any of you want to come now and do more speeches over at my lab, that will be fine. What a tragedy. You have 3 brothers and they're picking you up from school. What is 3 brothers? What's your last name?
H-A-R-I-R-I.
Okay. Did you go overtime on your last speech? Yeah, I gave you 2 less points than you earned before for some reason. I don't know why. This is yours.
Oh, I read a lot.
Oh, you read it? You read last time? And I have recorded the midterm.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, I have a question about the paper.
Yeah.
I emailed you about changing your topic to for stricter testing for in gun control in order to purchase a gun, stricter background checks.
You emailed this thing?
Yeah.
I didn't respond.
No, it was. I don't know if it worked. It sent me back like that one of your emails was working, but the Gmail wasn't working. I don't know.
No, my Gmail works, but not Yahoo.
Got it. Okay. So
Try it again. Try it through UCLA.
So I just want to know before I go off. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's okay, but you need to confirm it with me through email.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have a question. I was just following.
You're following? You're following?
So Stephanie and I were actually thinking about being judges for that debate.
Oh, yeah, great. Great, okay, good.
What time on Saturday?
It's about 8 to 5. Can you do that? Yeah. Lots of extra credit,
Okay.
yeah.
And how far is it? Like how would
It's 35 minutes out to 10.
Okay.
And does it require consistent attention, or can I bring homework with me and kind of
No, it requires, you can't do it, you can't do homework. It requires you to listen attentively. Yeah. They would be pissed off because these debaters have researched and they want